Thank you for taking the time to view our first virtual ENL parent workshop. Support at-home reading habits for your child with ENL teachers Katie Goldacker
and Emily Murray. The goal of this workshop is to give you, the parent, some helpful tips on how to engage your child in reading at home.
Today in the presentation, we will focus on the following. 1. The importance of choosing the right book and when to abandon the wrong book.
2. The value of reading bilingual books.
3. Setting a positive example for your child to encourage and inspire them to read. And
4. Strategies to help your child become a better reader.
Reading gives us some place to go when we have to stay where we are. Mason Cooley.
During the pandemic, we see that what we are able to do and the activities children are able to do are somewhat limited. There is no limit to reading.
Now is the time to help our children discover a world of reading, an activity they can do alone, with you, a sibling, a friend, or even social distancing. First, a little about ourselves. My name is Katie Goldacker, and I've taught at every level in Connecticut, elementary, middle, and high school, and I can tell you firsthand that reading is important at every level. I've been teaching for over 14 years. I taught Spanish for about 5 years and English as a new language for about 9 years now. I currently teach ENL at Ronkonkoma Middle School. I also grew up with a bilingual parent who speaks German and English.
My name is Emily Murray. This is my first year at Ronkonkoma Middle School as an English as a new language teacher. I have been teaching ENL and ELA for 6 years and graduated from Connecticut. As a certified ENL, ELA, and literacy teacher, I feel that instilling a love of literature and the written word is paramount to student success.
In this first section, we will discuss the importance of helping your child pick out the right book for them. A picture is worth 1,000 words. We want your child to love to read, and that starts with finding books that engage and hold their interest. Choosing the right book. It is important to choose a book that interests your child. Who knows your child better than you? Help them pick a topic that they will love to read about. This will keep them engaged and focused and keep them reading. It is also important to choose a book that is level and age appropriate. If you are unsure of your child's level, you can always ask their teacher. Their teacher and a librarian can offer suggestions of authors and books that children their age may like. In Connecticut, the English department stresses the importance of teaching your child to independently read and sustain focus on reading for extended periods of time. Your child may be asked to pick out an independent reading book for their ELA class. For your child who is learning English, books with pictures and graphic novels are wonderful. Try to help them pick out a mixture of fiction and nonfiction literature. There is nothing worse than picking out a book and finding out it's just not for you and feeling like you're stuck with a book that bores you. It's important to teach your child that it is okay to abandon or stop reading a book after giving it a try if they find out they don't like it. So knowing when to abandon a book. If your child is not interested in continuing to read it, if your child finds a book boring or starts to lose interest, teach them that it's okay to abandon or stop reading the book. At the lower elementary level, if they're uninterested after a few pages, it's time to pick a different book. At the upper elementary level, after reading about 20 plus pages, it's time to pick another one. And at the upper levels, after a couple of chapters, it's time to seek out another book as well. And that's okay. It's the same with a book that's too difficult or too easy. For a child to become a better reader, they should be reading at a level that is right for them. A little challenging is okay, but we don't want them struggling through a book or breezing through it either. But forcing them to finish a book that they clearly don't love or one that's too difficult or too easy will clearly turn them off of reading, and we don't want that. Bilingual and native language books. Many parents are afraid to read to or to continue teaching their child in their home language for fear that it will slow down learning English. Don't be afraid to teach your child to read in your home language, and here's why. Research shows that literacy skills in the native language can transfer to the new language of English. The stronger your child's reading skills are in their home language, the easier it will be for them to learn English. Those skills can transfer over to learning English. Seeing both languages, the child will be able to pick up similarities and differences between them. When the child sees both languages side by side, they will be able to see differences and similarities and associate certain words or learn certain words either in English or in their home language. Seeing both languages side by side, the child will see equal value in both languages. I think this is probably most important. They will see this equal value. It's important to maintain your culture and your language. Inspiring and encouraging your child to read. First, I'm going to play a brief video that is going to give you some helpful hints on how to inspire your child to read.
Hi, my name is Ann Glass. I'm a reading and learning specialist at a private school in New York City, and I work with kindergartners through third graders on reading, word study, and writing skills. In addition to being a reading specialist and a learning specialist, I'm also a parent, and today I'm going to talk to you about topics in reading. Almost every school from at least first grade on requires students to read about 20 to 30 minutes each night. Now, getting your child to actually sit down and read the book can often be a challenge, and I hear from parents all the time that it usually culminates in a battle involving bribery, threats, pleading, and all kinds of drama. There are some things that you can do to avoid getting to this point. The first one is to model your own reading. If your child sees you reading and enjoying a book, he's going to be much more likely to sit down and do it. It's a great way to avoid a do as I say, not as I do scenario. And children who grow up in households where reading is a desired activity are much more likely to be independent readers on their own. The second suggestion is to make sure your child has a designated reading place. That could be in bed or a special chair or on the sofa or just anywhere in your home where he feels comfortable reading. You can even have a discussion around that, discussing where you enjoy reading. You might have a special chair, and you can talk about how that feels comfortable to you, and it's a place where you can really concentrate and create a quiet bubble for reading for yourself. Another important tip for enforcing reading time at home and making it a pleasant thing to do is to eliminate possible distractions. That means turning off the TV and turning off the computer, and also making sure that noisy siblings are out of the way and quiet, which I know is easier said than done. It's also completely acceptable to provide a small bribe or gimmick to your child if you think that will motivate him to start reading. I recently gave my son a book light, and he actually thought it was fantastic. And he looks forward every night to getting into bed at bedtime and pulling the covers up over his head, turning on his book light, and reading for about a half an hour. So that's actually worked out really nicely. It felt like a treat for him, and it made it something fun to do. And he's also told me that it just creates this silence around him where it's just him and his book. One gimmick or bribe that I would advise against, and I've seen a few of these lately, are these bookmarks that have a digital clock on them. And you can actually set the clock for the 20 or 30 minutes that is required for reading. The problem with this is that it's the only thing your child's going to pay attention to, and they will watch the minutes tick down until the required time is up. So there's never going to be an opportunity for that child to really dig into the book and have the pleasure of losing himself in a story. Hi, my name is Ann Glass.
Okay, so in review, One of the most important things that she said was to set an example, let them see you reading, make an environment in your home where it shows that reading is a desirable activity. So make reading enjoyable. Let your child choose a book that interests them. Create a cozy reading space, somewhere where they can sit, that's comfortable for them. You can also play soft music, provide a snack for them. Audiobooks are wonderful where they can, read along with the book. She mentioned the word bribe. We like the word incentives or prizes. You can offer them more screen time, either on the computer, on their favorite video game. You can provide their favorite snacks or foods, some extra time outside, riding their bike or their skateboard on their skateboard at the park. You can also watch the movie that's based on the book, because there are a lot of movies now that are based on literature. Also, create reading routines. And routine is very important. I think this is probably one of the keys to success for reading at home. Set aside a specific time of day for reading. Reading at bedtime is wonderful. Trips to the library or the bookstore. Reread books that they enjoy or are successful with. And always have books available.
Lastly, modeling good reading for your child is an excellent way to support their reading at home. There are many ways to model good reading to ultimately guide your child to becoming a strong, independent reader. Modeling reading is an excellent way to provide your child with an example of how good readers read. It is important to model good fluency, punctuation, and intonation in your reading. As your child listens to you read, they pick up on these important factors that will contribute to supporting their reading habits and abilities. Ways to model good reading include reading aloud, shared and choral reading, thinking aloud, and making connections. Reading aloud to your child allows them to listen and enjoy the story while absorbing the way in which you are reading, including the rate of fluency, emphasis on punctuation, and expression in their reading. Shared and choral reading is another excellent way to model and practice good reading with your child. In shared reading, you and your child will take turns reading aloud. Choral reading consists of you and your child reading together at the same time. These strategies are both useful in providing your child with an opportunity to read while still having some support. Think aloud is used to show how readers process information they are reading. It is useful for parents to incorporate this to model how good readers think while reading. Stopping to ask questions out loud, as if to yourself, and then having a discussion with your child for possible answers allows their brain to begin to process reading in the same way. Making connections to what you are reading is also an effective way to model good reading. Good readers should find ways to make connections between the text to themselves, other stories, or the world. This can be done during think aloud moments and will guide children to eventually doing this on their own during independent reading. Let's take a moment to watch the video that speaks a little more to the importance of read alouds and how to read aloud effectively.
Let's talk about read aloud. It's my favorite subject, you guys. It's so incredibly important. Reading aloud from the time your child is born to the time they leave their home. Never stop reading aloud. What I mean by read aloud are the books that you read to them. This is the time that they're just listening, they're cuddling, they're snuggling. It could be bedtime, it could be nap time, it could be any time they want to read a book or you want to read to them. There are no rules to read aloud time. That's what's so great about it. This is the time that we just encourage children to come along with us and to feel good about a book. This is when we share the love of books with them. This is when we create those really warm memories that books are about love and comfort, and books are a really great thing. So no rules to this. You could read picture books, you could read fun books, you could read kid books, you could read chapter books, you could read magazines. You could read excerpts of things. You could just read a chapter a day on our chapter book, and that really creates a lot of anticipation. I always like to read alouds that were a little bit above my child's level. So when they were toddlers, we were reading things like The Lion King or The Little Engine That Could, because obviously they couldn't read yet. But when they started to read, I got into the chapter books so that they were inspired to keep learning how to read. So they could start reading things like Charlotte's Web and The Mouse and the Motorcycle and The Wind in the Willows and Runaway Ralph and all of those things, Stuart Little. They can learn to read those on their own. So no rules to read aloud time. Have fun with it, but definitely never skip read aloud time, and don't stop reading aloud even when your children become proficient readers. As long as they're willing to sit and cuddle with a book with you. We read to our children well into their teens. We would take turns. My husband would take one and I would take the other. And as long as they're willing, keep reading aloud. So no rules to read aloud time. That's the time that you read books to them and they just listen. Have fun with that, everybody.
So like she said in the video, there's no rules to read aloud. This is really for your child's enjoyment. You should be reading to them so they can enjoy the story. And reading books a little above their level is a good idea to expose them to those texts that they may not be able to read on their own. The following video discusses in depth the importance of reading aloud and some strategies parents can incorporate before, during, and after reading. These strategies can be used with any child of any level or any age.
Reading aloud with your child is an important part of their education. It teaches them how to speak fluently, listen carefully, and eventually the ability to read by themselves. Here are 5 tips to make the time you spend reading with your child more effective. Number 1, show them the cover. Before reading to your child, show them the cover of the book and ask them questions about it. This is a great way to engage their interest and work their imagination. Number 2, test your child's interest and progress. Children can be easily distracted. To keep them focused, ask questions such as how they think the characters are feeling. What do they think will happen next? This helps to keep them interested and tests their predictive skills. Number 3, check newly acquired skills. Stories contain diversified vocabulary. Whenever new words pop up, make them guess the meaning by using picture clues. Break down sentences that they do not understand and constantly ask simple questions. Number 4, make it engaging. Children tend to be more attentive when the story comes to life. They need to differentiate between characters to follow the plot. So, using separate voices and nuancing lines is a good trick. Number 5, get feedback from your child. At the end of the book, ask your child what they enjoyed or disliked about the story and explain why. Asking these types of questions improves their oral fluency. It also encourages them to form opinions and gives them the confidence to express their preferences more. Any one of these 5 tips should engage your child with reading and hopefully start them on a journey of being a lifelong reader.
So as I discussed in the video, these strategies can be used really for any child of any age. While your child is reading, you should show interest by asking them questions. This will motivate them further to continue reading. You don't have to have read the book that your child is reading to ask them questions about it and to show interest. You may ask questions like, who are the characters? What is it about? What is their favorite part so far? Have them retell the book to you. You can also discuss what they're reading using your native language, and in doing this, you're checking for your child's interest and comprehension. To review, some excellent ways to support and instill good reading habits for your child include helping your child to choose the right book, one that will interest them and is within their reading ability, incorporating bilingual books to support their literacy development in their native language as well as English, finding ways to inspire and encourage them to foster a love for reading through incentives and routines, and to model good reading to show your child how good readers read. Having knowledge of these different strategies will allow you to guide your child to success and help them become a lifelong learner and a lifelong reader. Thank you for taking an interest in your child's success and for attending this workshop. We hope that the information within this presentation is useful in providing you with some new ways to help support your child's reading at home. If you have any additional questions, you may contact Ms. Goldacker or myself, Ms. Murray, through our email addresses that are provided on this slide. Please enjoy the free printable coloring bookmarks provided through the link on this slide to get your child excited about reading their next book. Thank you again.